So I'm going to try and show a little bit about the Peercents simulator, how you can fill up the forms and how you can understand the outputs and how you can use it to sort of evaluate financial decisions. So going a little bit backwards here, how it works is you enter all the parameters for what your life is, for your age, your salary, as well as your assets, and it calculates your life trajectory in terms of your finances. So you can sort of see how it works, how you progress over time. And additionally, it features the success score, which is your chance of having money at a given point in time. So here you can see your success score. 100% chance I have money until around, my mid 60s, where I start to have trouble. And by the time I get to 100 years old, I only have a 94% chance of having enough money. So to get started, we're going to go to the Simulate tab, and we're going to obviously create a new simulation. What you see might be a little bit different. Because I'm logged in, it already has my age, and I can also specify a target retirement age. So how that works is it's just going to stop your salary at that from age 50 onwards. This field might be a little bit confusing. The way the simulation works is it counts all the times. It runs thousands of simulations of your life and counts all the times that you ran out of money as failure to give you that success score percentage. However, there are a lot of legitimate reasons you might have a negative net worth at some point in your time. Notably, if you're going to college and you have student loans and you just graduate, you don't have a lot of time to acquire assets, you might be in negative net worth. So what we can put here is a threshold for the system to ignore a negative net worth. And so it'll only check if you have a negative net worth after you turn 35. Another way to look at it is like this is our target for when we want to have a positive net worth. Monthly salary, you just put in here. If you don't know it in terms of months, you could, do basic math in this form, and it can figure stuff out for you. Oops. Here you can do the same thing with your monthly spending, and alternatively, if you don't want to give a fixed number, and don't worry, that won't be fixed forever, it will increment with whatever you put here for inflation, as well as lifestyle escalation. If your life gets fancier and fancier, your cost of living gets, higher over time. Yeah, instead of that, you can also put this, which will calculate expenses as a percentage of your investable assets. So this could be a good way to test the 4%. We'll just put 4% here, and it will just withdraw 4% from your portfolio. We're just going to leave that at 0 for now. Months of spending. So this is for your emergency fund. So how it works is you can see that you can conservatively have 12 months of expenses, or, the conventional wisdom is 6 months of expenses to keep in a liquid emergency fund. And what that will do is it will carve out this amount, 18,000 in my case, from your investable assets in cash, and then only after that's been filled, invest the remainder based on the proportions you specify here. So moving on, there are a couple ways to specify your assets. One of them is by ticker symbol. So you could, enter in some, your portfolio. Like let's say I have 100 shares of SPY. You can add that, and maybe a few shares of. I think I just overwrote that. Anyway, and you can add new. So let's put that SPY back there. And it will calculate the market price as well as the historical return and volatility for that specific asset. We're not going to do it like that. We're just actually going to do it with by asset class. So the numbers here are taken from analysts' estimation of forward-looking returns and volatility, whereas this is just historical. So let's say I have 8,000 in US large cap stocks, and I have, in aggregate bonds, another 2,000. And you'll notice this is roughly an 80-20 portfolio, 80% equities, 20% in bonds. And this is my liquid investable assets. The other assets I have are illiquid, so I can't really sell them super easily. Here I could put my home. when I purchased it, as well as an expected mean return. Maybe it does have some return, and that could vary from your depending on what the asset is. And now we have our total assets: $240,000 in a house and $10,000 in liquid investments, for a total of $250,000 in total assets. Now we're not totally done here. We have to add our liabilities, and so the first big one I'm going to add is the mortgage, which is half of the house at a pretty good interest rate, and it's a 30-year, and it just started, so it's got to be paid down in 30 years. Ending balloon, $0, meaning by the end of that 30 years it should have been fully paid off. And so what is the actual planned repayment I have to make? Well, to pay down $120,000 in 30 years, I need to pay $486.72. Now, you could always plan to pay more or less than that here, or you could just experiment with the model. But in this case, I am just going to pay what I should pay. Now let me just add one more really quickly, which is the student loan. And that's less favorable in every way. And let's target to have it paid down by 40. So ending balloon 0, so I have to pay 236.18. Oops, need a tab, and I'll save that. And there we go. So I have a couple things, and you definitely don't need all of them to run a calculation, but let's just do it now. And you can see that, yeah, these are my results. So this number is always out of 100, at age 100. So at age of 100, I have a 64.92% chance of still having money left over, which is not super great. I start to have trouble around, I guess around here in my 60s. You can notice when I retire here at about 50, the trajectory of the line noticeably kinks because I no longer am drawing the salary. So it's purely based on portfolio income from that point onward. So what you do at this point would probably be to figure out how you could get this a little bit better. Just to go over the inputs a little bit more, you can see your success score, some other metrics. This is your portfolio's mean return. You might think that's incredibly low. The source of this data actually has some pretty conservative projections. So you can choose to deviate from that if you want. But yeah, you can see at the 1 percentile, if I'm very unlucky with how the market performs, I could just be really crushed there at negative 6 million. Yeah, at this point, I could get really unlucky. Anyway, what you want to do is probably change these parameters to see what it would take to have all these numbers look better, to have a better success score, maybe a higher return. What you can do is you can actually duplicate this entire scenario. So it's completely duplicated here, all the parameters, and let's just rerun it to double check. And yeah, they're mostly the same. You'll notice a little bit of a difference between the numbers, and that's simply because the methodology is each one of these has run a unique thousands of simulations of your lifetime. And these descriptive statistics are coming from the averages or the medians of that. So they'll be really close, but they won't be exactly the same. Let's see. So what can we do? Okay, one thing I realized I didn't do there is I didn't add my Social Security. So what I can do is add this custom cash flow call, and I'm just going to call it Social Security. I think it's going to be about $38,000 a year, starting when I'm 67 years old until I guess the end. And I'm going to save it, and I can calculate that. And you can see it does substantially shift me upwards in terms of success. Everything else changes. My portfolio didn't. Everything else kind of stays the same. We didn't really change our portfolio. The other thing we can do is maybe, yeah, that really didn't help that much. Maybe retiring later. This seems like it would help. Ooh, yeah, that really does. But that extra 5 years feels pretty unacceptable. I can try something And I happen to know that in this set of data, emerging markets equity is expected to return a little bit higher. So you can see I've changed that. Oh yeah, and that's much better. So you can see changing the outputs. I have a much higher expected mean return, but higher standard deviation, and a very unlucky outcome. The 1 percentile year would be a minus 30% year versus over here it would only be minus 21%. So you kind of internally ask yourself, is that worth it? This higher success rate, can I really tolerate a year where I lose 30%? That's something a model can't really tell you, and you kind of just have to inspect your own motions for that. Anyway, that's hopefully a nice little introduction for some of the things you could do with this. Oh, one last thing is you can actually also share these models in case you want to, ask Reddit or talk about it on this platform. But what you would have to do is probably save. Oh, so let's give them some unique names. Let's call this scenario 1 and save it. Let's call this scenario 2 and save it. Let's call it scenario B. That's a sensible naming convention. And we can just add some name for the snapshot. My first snapshot. It's obviously not my first, but just thinking of a unique name. And what happens after that is you can find them actually here in your list of snapshots. So here you have snapshot 1, scenario 1, scenario B, which we saved individually, but you also have that aggregate view over here, my first snapshot. None of these simulations are shareable. These are all private, and the only things you can share are snapshots. And you can share them simply with the URL on the page that you, when you navigate towards them. Alternatively, if you go on to sort of the discussion page, you can share a snapshot with this icon. And you can select from your existing snapshots, add that, and you can just add that there. How can I retire earlier? And just make a post here in case you want to have the discussion over here. But again, this URL should work in just anywhere else. Anyway, hopefully that helps you understand a little bit of what you can do with the platform. So here I just navigated to scenario B itself, but I want to do a comparison, and I probably want to bring back scenario 1. Yeah, so I can go back to them. But yeah, so that's a little bit about Peercents. Hopefully you find it useful, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section below. Thanks.